Zara Thompson, a brilliant 17-year-old black girl, had just done something incredible. She scored the highest mark in her class on a tough math test. A bright red 100% sat at the top of her paper. It should have been a proud moment, something to celebrate. But instead, the classroom was thick with silence. All eyes were on her, and not in a good way. She sat still at her desk, holding her breath as Mr. Leonard Grayson, their math teacher, stood frozen at the whiteboard. His face was twisted with disbelief, like he couldn't accept what he was seeing. He tapped the marker against the board nervously, his eyes locked on Zara's paper. Then, in a tone sharp with judgment, he said, "This is impossible." A few students chuckled quietly. Others looked around, confused. Zara's stomach turned. She sat up straighter and tried to stay calm. "What do you mean impossible?" Grayson folded his arms tightly across his chest and narrowed his eyes at her. "No one in this class has ever scored a perfect 100 on one of my advanced tests. And now suddenly you do? And not just that, you outscored everyone else by a wide margin." The way he looked at her said everything. Like she didn't belong there. Like it didn't make sense that someone like her could be smarter than the rest. Zara had always been one of the top students in school. But somehow Mr. Grayson never seemed to notice. He was quick to praise Logan Barrett and Macy Whitfield, two white kids from rich families. But when Zara raised her hand or offered a smart answer, it was like she was invisible. Still, she stayed calm. "I studied hard," she said. "You gave us the review sheet. I prepared." "I don't believe it," he cut her off coldly. "There's no way you got this score fairly." The classroom gasped. Zara's heart began to pound. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" "I am," he said without hesitation. Laughter erupted from Logan's side of the room. Macy pretended to be shocked, covering her mouth, but the smirk on her face gave her away. Zara's fists clenched at her sides. "That's not true," she said firmly. "I've always been good at math. I earned this." Grayson didn't care. He snatched the test from her desk and waved it in front of the class. "Then explain how you solved these problems so perfectly. Show me your notes." Zara hesitated. I don't have them. I did most of it in my head." Grayson rolled his eyes. "Right. So you just casually solved college-level calculus in your head?" "I don't think so." Then he turned to the rest of the class. If she really understood it, she should be able to redo these problems right now. The room buzzed with whispers. Some students looked at her with sympathy. Others, like Logan, leaned back in their seats, ready to watch her fail. Grayson slammed a blank sheet on her desk. "Go on. Let's see you do it again." Zara stared at the paper. She could do it again, but that wasn't the point. Why was she the only one being treated this way? She looked up at Grayson and said clearly, "Why don't you make Logan or Macy redo their answers too?" Grayson's eyes narrowed, a flicker of frustration flashing across his face. "They didn't score a perfect 100, he snapped. "You did." Zara felt the heat rising in her chest. Anger and humiliation mixed like poison in her veins. Her spine stiffened as the weight of the room bore down on her. She looked him dead in the eye. "Maybe," she said slowly, "you just can't believe that a black girl could be smarter than your favorite students." The entire class froze. The air became thick, tense and heavy. Grayson's jaw clenched tight. His face turned red, a clear mix of embarrassment and rage. "Excuse me," he barked. "You heard me," Zara replied, her voice calm and unwavering. "You've never liked me. Never called on me in class. Never once praised me when I got the answer right. But now that I outscored everyone else, suddenly I'm a cheater." Some students shifted awkwardly in their seats. The silence was deafening. Grayson's lip curled in a sneer. "I don't care what nonsense you're saying. I'm reporting this to the principal." Then, without warning, he reached down, snatched Zara's test from the desk, and crumpled it in his hand. "Your grade is invalid." Zara's chest tightened. Her heart dropped. "This isn't fair," she said softly. "Life's not fair," Grayson snapped, full of spite. Just then, the classroom door creaked open. Principal Marcus Dean walked in. He was tall, composed, and his presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. In his late 50s, with serious eyes and a firm voice, he didn't need to raise his tone to command respect. Mr. Grayson, he said coolly. Can I have a word? Grayson looked caught off guard. Sir, I was just. Dean raised a hand to stop him. Outside. Now. Grayson hesitated for a moment, but obeyed and followed him out. The door clicked shut. A storm of whispers instantly filled the room. Logan let out a smug laugh. Guess your little act didn't work, Thompson. Zara didn't even glance at him. Her eyes were locked on the door. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. Something felt different. Something was coming. A minute later, the door opened again. This time, Principal Dean stepped back inside alone. His expression was unreadable as he scanned the room, then focused on her. Miss Thompson, he said, could you come with me? Zara's throat went dry. Her hands trembled slightly as she grabbed her bag and stood up. Every step felt heavy as she followed him out into the hallway. Waiting outside was Ms. Perez, the school's guidance counselor, standing next to a laptop on a rolling cart. The screen was paused on what looked like security footage. Dean turned to Zara. Do you know what this is? Zara nodded. The classroom CCTV footage. Without saying a word, Dean hit play. The video showed Grayson at his desk earlier that morning, long before class had started. He was flipping through test papers. When he reached Zara's, he stared at it for a while, his lips moving like he was muttering to himself. Suddenly, his jaw tightened and he slammed the paper down on the desk. The footage continued. Moments before he returned the tests, Grayson checked the room, pulled out his phone, and typed something quickly. Then he picked up Zara's test again and muttered under his breath. There's no way in hell she's that smart. Zara's fists clenched. Her breath caught in her throat. Dean let out a slow breath. We've been checking older footage too, he said quietly. And this isn't the first time he's done this. Zara's stomach twisted with a mix of relief and disbelief. Miss Perez gave her a reassuring smile. Zara, you're not in trouble, she said softly. But Mr. Grayson is. And we're taking this very seriously. Before Zara could respond, the classroom door flew open. Grayson came storming out, his face red and twisted with rage. This is outrageous, he shouted. That video doesn't prove anything. Principal Dean turned to face him, calm but firm. It proves everything. Grayson let out a bitter scoff. Oh, so now you're going to believe this little girl over me? Dean's eyes darkened. No, Mr. Grayson. I'm believing the evidence. He stepped forward, his presence commanding. You are officially suspended. Effective immediately. Grayson blinked, stunned. You can't be serious. You will collect your belongings and leave the school premises. Now, before he could argue further, security officers appeared at the end of the hallway. Grayson looked around desperately, like he expected someone to speak up for him. But no one said a word. His gaze swept over teachers and staff. Nothing but silence. With a bitter grunt, he turned on his heel and stormed down the hall. Zara let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Dean turned to her, the corners of his mouth lifting into a smile. And you, Miss Thompson, he said gently, have just earned yourself a full-ride scholarship. Zara's eyes widened. Wait, what? Dean nodded. We reached out to a few academic partners. They were blown away by your talent and your strength. They've offered you a scholarship, all expenses covered. Zara's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just justice. This felt like fate stepping in. Like karma catching up to everything she had endured. The news spread through Lincoln High like wildfire. By lunch, the whole school was buzzing. Students whispered about Grayson being escorted out. Some were shocked. Others just nodded, saying they always knew something was off about him. One thing was certain. Zara Thompson was no longer just a quiet girl in the back row. She had become a symbol. Her name was on everyone's lips. As she sat in the cafeteria scrolling through her phone, her inbox exploded with messages. You did it, girl. Finally, someone stood up to him. You earned that scholarship. Don't let anyone tell you different. But not every message came with support. Across the room, Logan Barrett and Macy Whitfield sat with their usual group, whispering and glaring her way. Logan stood slowly. Though his voice wasn't loud, it cut through the cafeteria chatter like a knife. This is a joke, he muttered. Macy smirked. Biggest scam of the year. Zara sighed, locking her phone. She didn't have time for their bitterness. But Logan wasn't done. He turned toward her, voice dripping with sarcasm. Yo, Zara, he called. Tell us, how does it feel to play the victim and get rewarded for it? Gasps rippled through nearby tables. Zara turned to face him, calm but firm. Excuse me. You heard me, he said. You cheated. Grayson called it out, and instead of proving him wrong, you ran to the principal like a scared little girl. Some of his friends snickered. Macy crossed her arms, still smirking. Zara stood slowly, pushing back her chair. Her voice was low, steady. The only person exposed here was Grayson. I worked for that grade. I earned it. She took a step closer, eyes locked with his. Just because you couldn't beat me doesn't mean I cheated. Logan's smirk twitched, faltering. Please, he muttered. You got lucky. Zara raised a brow. Lucky? She leaned in, fire in her voice. Where was my luck when Grayson ignored me every time I raised my hand? Where was my luck when I had to study twice as hard just to get noticed? She paused. Or maybe you're just mad a black girl outsmarted you. The entire cafeteria went still. Logan's face turned bright red. And just like that, Zara didn't need to say another word. You're pathetic, Logan muttered before storming off. Macy scoffed and followed him, clearly bitter. Zara let out a quiet breath. A few students clapped, some nodded with quiet respect. But she didn't need the applause. She had already won. The next morning, the entire school gathered in the auditorium. Every seat was filled. Students, teachers, even a few curious parents. Principal Dean stood at the front, adjusting the microphone. Good morning, everyone, he began. I won't take much of your time, but something important needs to be addressed. Whispers echoed through the room. Yesterday, he continued, Mr. Grayson was officially suspended after evidence confirmed a pattern of racial bias and discrimination in his classroom. Gasps filled the auditorium. But this isn't just about one teacher, Dean said, his voice steady. It's about the kind of culture we accept in our school. And let me be absolutely clear. Lincoln High will never be a place where students are judged by anything other than their abilities. Zara sat in the front row, her heart pounding. Then Dean turned toward her. Miss Thompson, please stand. She hesitated, then slowly rose to her feet. Dean smiled. Zara didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for fairness, for respect, and for every student who has ever felt unseen. Because of her strength, real change is happening at this school. The entire room erupted into applause. Zara's eyes stung, but she held back the tears. Dean raised his voice slightly over the cheers. And for her excellence, resilience, and leadership, I'm proud to announce that Zara has been awarded a full academic scholarship to any university of her choice. The crowd went wild. Students stood, clapping and whistling. Even a few teachers wiped away tears. Zara placed her hand over her mouth, overwhelmed by the moment. Dean stepped forward with a warm smile. Congratulations, Miss Thompson. You've earned every bit of this. Zara looked around the room, taking it all in. The support, the truth, the justice. Grayson tried to break her spirit, but instead he ended up proving her worth. If you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button. And never let anyone define your worth but you.